Hey, my name is Mo Rahim, and this is Mary Jane Markets. This is a podcast reviewing and analyzing the news of the North American cannabis space and a few of its operators: Curaleaf, Cresco Labs, Green Thumb Industries, and Trulieve. Today is Monday, August 2nd, and there was a lot of news that came out this weekend and today about GTI, so this will be a very GTI heavy episode. We'll be talking about a tweet revealing their expansion into Georgia, news of an acquisition, separately a report coming out of Colorado, and be sure to stay tuned until the end. You'll want to hear GTI CEO Ben Kovler absolutely smash an answer in a Bloomberg interview that will get you hyped. A quick look at the markets today to start it off. A strong day for US MSOs while the CSE was closed for holiday, with Curaleaf up 2.5%, Cresco Labs up 4%, GTI up 3.9%, and Trulieve up 1.9%. First up is a juicy tweet from Ben Kovler, CEO of GTI. This was a thread started on July 24th with Kovler congratulating Georgia's Medical Cannabis Commission's awarding of those low THC licenses. The first time ever for cannabis licenses of any kind to be awarded in Georgia. We spoke about this and looked at the winners of those 6 licenses, and the only MSO on that list was Trulieve, or so we all thought. So Ben tweeting out on the day of that announcement, July 24th, Prohibition 2.0 continues its crumble today. At 11 a.m. Eastern Time, the great state of Georgia will announce the license winners. Link below. More well-being in Georgia is a good thing. Hashtag bring water to the desert. A couple other people on Twitter prodding Ben to reveal a little more on the topic, with @pmay125 asking congrats, ? To which Ben replied with just a fist emoji, and then Omar_Fakuri1 following up with, so did you win in Georgia? To Ben's ambiguous response, to which Ben replied, Green Thumb didn't apply directly. Congratulations and mad props to our partner and all the winners. Hashtag create new wealth. The great American growth story is headed to Atlanta. So I take this as confirmation that GTI, along with Trulieve now, has entered the state of Georgia, the 9th largest cannabis market in the country. And we've talked about the advantages of being the first to enter the state, even though these Georgia licenses are limited to low THC, so CBD, for their medicinal program. With this news, I also don't think it's a big leap to expect that the phone is ringing off the hook for those other private players too. The news doesn't stop there for Green Thumb. Along with expanding their empire to Georgia, we got news today of an acquisition in Rhode Island of a vertically integrated cannabis corporation for an undisclosed amount. They announced it this way because it looks like the business structure to acquire this operator was a little bit more complex than just buying one entity. They state here that they acquired Mobley Pain Management and Wellness Center LLC and Canwell Processing LLC, which both held contractual interest in Summit Medical Compassion Center, a nonprofit corporation with vertically integrated cannabis operations in Rhode Island. This DE and Rhode Island here just denotes the state of incorporation for these businesses. So Mobley Pain Management and a Wellness Center was incorporated in Delaware, while Canwell Processing was incorporated in Rhode Island. This Delaware formation here is common practice in the US. If you look at the financial filings of US public companies, they're mostly all incorporated in Delaware. I think that's just because of their clear and swift judicial system when it comes to dealing with corporations. So the operations of these businesses are completely in Rhode Island. We can look up the annual report of this company, Mobley, and we see that they are in fact formed in the state of Delaware, but they do business in Rhode Island, which is a totally normal, common practice, nothing to raise our eyebrows at. since they're a private company, this report doesn't have financial information. It's more like a report they have to file to keep their business license up to date, and they don't give out any information like revenue or anything like that. Let's go back to the press release. A couple other things I wanted to touch on here. Rhode Island is a medicinal only state, has been since 2006, but the state, being very tight with their licenses, has only 3 dispensaries in operation. Summit Medical Compassion Center here owning one of those 3 locations in the state. Another thing to bring up, like GTI says here, in 2020, sales in the state were approximately 60 million. So I'm assuming GTI now owns a third of that at 20 million. And we've seen these smaller operators being bought out for 3 to 5x revenue. So a rough ballpark of this acquisition might be around $60 to $100 million. And they also don't say what method was used for the purchase, whether it was cash, stock, or a mix of both. If we hop over to my market landscape spreadsheet, so for first-time viewers, this is a spreadsheet of the US market, and I've ordered this by each state's GDP here. So basically the size of each economy, and then taken my estimate of the whole cannabis market in the US, both illicit and legal, and distributed that across each state in proportion to its GDP. And that tells me the potential total cannabis market in each state. And you can see the value in that when we want to assess news like GTI expanding into Georgia, expanding into Rhode Island. And in these other columns, I'm basically taking the numbers coming out of each state so this was for 2020. Some states we get hard numbers from the state programs, other states we have to estimate either based on what companies are reporting there or what patient counts are. And then this color coding here is basically just green for recreational, blue for medicinal, and then yellow for CBD. If you want more detailed information on this and these numbers, be sure to check out my first episode. So Rhode Island here, getting back to the point, is all the way down here, comprising only 0.3% of the country's GDP. So it took 0.3% of the cannabis market in the US, and my estimate for the Rhode Island market is 457 million. And by my research, they sold 56 million in medicinal product last year, so approximately 60 million, like GTI said in their press release. And that comprised only 12% of the potential total market in the state. So, good move by GTI in my opinion. They've got a foothold in that state now before it goes recreational, and we should see that 20 million start hitting the top line maybe next quarter, and then it can only be explosive growth from there if the state goes recreational. And I know there's legislation in the works, which at this point can be said about pretty much any state. Staying on topic here with all things GTI related, there was also a nice piece in MG Magazine this weekend on the man himself, Ben Kovler, with some background and a history of both Ben and GTI. I won't go into detail here, but it's a nice casual read. I'll drop this link below. Switching away from GTI for a few minutes, next up is a nice review of the Colorado cannabis market, specifically the third Impacts on Marijuana Legalization in Colorado report published by the Colorado Division of Criminal Justice Office of Research and Statistics. Excuse me, I'm trying to read off of my screen share, which is really tiny instead of my actual screen. So this article was written by Allison Martin of Cannabis Wire, and she does a good job here of hitting the highlights in that 188-page report. I won't steal her thunder by reading off her article. I'll link both the article and the actual report below. A couple things I did want to touch on if we jump over to the actual report. There's a lot of good raw data in here, so I would bookmark this link so you can reference it in the future. But if we jump down here to adult usage, one interesting statistic was that in 2019 here, 19% of respondents said they used marijuana in the last 30 days. And that's up from 13.5% back in 2014 when they started this survey. So this is an important data point to consider when estimating the market size. And I'm estimating this nationally to be around 22.5%. But one thing to keep in mind about these numbers, and it's something I've talked about a few times now, Allison pulls the statements from the report here. So I'll jump back to her article. All the way down in the a note of caution section. Something I feel is very important to keep in mind when assessing surveys or other reports, and I'll just read this quote directly. The measurement of available data elements can be affected by the very context of marijuana legalization. For example, the decreasing social stigma regarding marijuana use could lead individuals to be more likely to report on surveys and also to health workers in emergency departments and poison control centers, making marijuana use appear to increase when perhaps it is not. Super, super important. So if we jump back over to this chart, I would not interpret this chart as once cannabis is legalized, we see nearly a 50% increase in usage among adults. I would interpret this as more people being like they don't need to lie now about it. So 19% here, or 22.5%, which is my estimate, might seem really high or really low to you, depending on your social circle or your firsthand experiences. But something really important when it comes to valuation is not letting our own internal biases affect the data or our decision-making process. Anyway, I'm glad Colorado's doing this, and this is a quick read that I recommend, so I'll link this below. All right, there's no better way to end today with GTI CEO Ben Kovler's answers to a Bloomberg Quick Take interview question, and I'll play that in a second. Thank you for listening. If you wish to contact me, my Twitter is @MJMarkets. My Patreon is patreon.com/MaryJaneMarkets. But all I ask at this time, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and share it out where you think other investors will see it. Thank you.
Sort of where Green Thumb sits in compared to competitors out there. Ben, doesn't more legalization open up the door to more competition, though? I mean, I'm curious if you're concerned at all for the business, because more and more people are growing or warming up to the fact about marijuana. I'm curious, sort of, what's your competitive outlook, or what, sort of where Green Thumb sits in compared to competitors out there.
No, we're not super concerned about competition. We like competition. We're in favor of it. This is America. We like that. But what you have is the industry in the U.S., just to put some numbers around it, today is legally about $24 billion at run rate. We think that's easily going to go to $80 billion. That means there's about $60 billion of new legal sales to come in the next 3 to 5 to 7 years. We think that's going to create $100 billion of market cap and wealth. So, yes, we're running the business for the shareholders. We want Green Thumb to be as good as possible, but we think profit for us and purpose for what this industry is and who should be a part of it can go hand in hand, and that's what we're about. So we think we're going to create a tremendous amount of shareholder value while a lot of new people come into the industry. Take, for example, the entire southeast of the country. Currently, there is no legal cannabis there except for Florida. But last weekend, Georgia announced their licenses. Virginia is now starting to unroll, and many of these other states will come. So we're super excited. The pie is very big. There's plenty of ways to win, and there's going to be plenty of winners, and we think we position Green Thumb really well.
And we know this